Hey there, welcome to this lecture. Let's continue our class where we left earlier. So today what we are going to do, first of all, we'll be going to create our one of the domain here. So you can see the way we will going to approach here. So from the repository side, you can see we're creating our data. That's perfectly fine. But while we're creating the data, it's based on something, right? So that is how the clean architecture or solid principle is always saying. So go with maybe a particular approach where you can have a very less dependency, or where you can hide the core data, right? You're not supposed to expose everything from the whatever you are storing in the source of truth, right? Just to isolate all of these things and expose on the minimalistic things. So at any point of time, while you need to make your changes on the core domain, then you no need to touch in a lot of things, right? This is what we are going to do today. So now we can see our repository is exposing our data. If we are going to access all of the data from our user service, as an example, right now we are creating our user, we're exposing it, right? So that means our presentation layer know what is the structure of that particular user data right there. It is storing in the repository. That is what we don't want, right? Because at the end of the day, our presentation layer should not supposed to be aware about our core, the domain logic, right? So that is what exactly coming to the picture, domain-driven design and a lot of stuff, right? So definitely we'll be going to cover domain-driven design also in our one of the lecture, where we will be going to discuss about some of the patterns widely used in the industry. But as of now, we are writing JavaScript code, so definitely some of the maybe some of the designs are not going to be applicable, but we will try to keep it as much as possible to apply right here. So you will be not get into situation while you need to write your JavaScript code, but still you have the possibility, still all the clever ideas how you can write your code in modular way, in a cleaner way. So now let's go to domain, right? So here we are going to create one file, right? So which is going to tackle all of the user data, right? So in this case, we're going to say new, we can say user dot entity dot js, right? Definitely, while we're writing these codes, and in upcoming lectures, the code will be going to be a little bit different because of its structure and all. JavaScript, we have limitations. So that's why what we are going to do, we'll be going to export one function. This is going to be, we can say export const, right? And create, or maybe we can say create user, or maybe user entity. Create user entity, right? So what this create user entity will do, it will going to accept some sort of parameters, right? And it will going to accept some of the inputs from our presentation layer, or maybe service layer, or something like that, and it will form some kind of restriction rule right here. So while we'll be going to deal with some data to return it, then we are always refer to this particular entity. So that means any kind of domain specific logic or validation we no need to do in out of the box. That is what the problem we are going to we'll be going to solve it here, right? So what are the things will be needed here? Definitely ID will be needed here. You can say ID, and name will be needed, right? Then email will be needed. So then we can say password, right? Password will be definitely hashed password, right? So we can say hashed password, or yeah, we can say hashed password, right? Because hashed password it's not supposed to be a part of this domain logic, right? So we'll be only going to accommodate whatever we can accommodate for domain perspective, right? Not any kind of logic outside of this particular the entity, right? So first, what we will be going to do, we will check if we don't have the email, right? Let's say email, right? Then if we don't have the email, right, then this is not going to be a kind of valid user entity, because anyway, email will be always required. We can say email, right? If type of email is not equal string, then we can say, then you can say throw new error, right? We'll be going to say email is required. required and must be a string, right? This is what we are going to throw it here. Then next thing we are going to check it out, the most essential stuff, the password, right? Because any kind of user entity, it should supposed to be password has to be present right there, right? So that is what we are going to we will be going to look into right here, right? So let's try to check it out here. So how we can do that one? If not hashed password or hash password, and hash password is not a type of the string, then we can say hash password is required. It must be a kind of form of string. And while we're returning the data, we are not directly returning this particular data structure like ID, name, email, and hash password, everything, right? So let's try to create some kind of function. We can say get ID, and get ID will be a form of a function which is potentially going to return our ID, and get name, email, and hash password, everything is going to be we'll be going to return it from here. All right. Then one more function will be needed here. So we can say check password, right? And in this case, we'll be going to provide the plain password, right? Here, space is going to be needed, right? Then hash are also going to be needed, right? So we can say hash function, right? Hash function, or maybe we can just hash. You can say hash, right? Hash function. So what exactly this check password will going to do, right? So this check password will be going to return like this particular hash function will be going to use, and then we can say compare, right? Then compare with the hash password, right? So this particular plain password will be going to provide it here, and this hash password it will be automatically, we can get it from while we will be creating our user entity. So that means while we'll be going to call the check password, it's a form of validation. We can check the user, that particular user, whatever user we are storing right there, it has the hash password, and if you're sending the new password, right, the plain password, is it the same password or not? So it's a form of validation. We can say we can do it in this entity level, but we're not going to do like hashing of the password stuff right here. So it will going to be outside of the box we can do, right? Perfect. So now our user the create user entity is done, right? Now let's go to our user service. So here we will be going to perform some we'll be going to access that user entity right here, right? So right before creating any data to the repository, and if you go to the create user repository, it's go to here in the user repository, you can see while we're creating, we are not doing anything. Where whatever password we are sending right here, it is getting assigned here, right? So somehow while we'll be creating our password or creating our user, then definitely we need to do the hash password stuff right here. So as you know, like already we have the shared module where we have the auth module here, right? So with the help of auth module, we can just do the hash password stuff from here. So here in the create user, so first of all, what we will be going to do here, this is not going to be like store data in the database. This is going to be like into this second state. Right? So first step, we need to hash our password, right? So let's try to do that. So we can say const, right? Const hashed password. Hash password will be await auth.hash password, right? So where user data, this particular user data, we will be going to receive from the create password function. Then we'll just like simply pass the password. So if you go to the user data here in the user handler, right? So here somehow we need to change this particular handler, but this is really a form of, we can say, right after handling this our user service, we can just like do that one, right? So let's go to our user service first, then, right? Then here, this user data will be exist with the user password, right? While we are going to create the user. Then now you can see our auth, this particular auth, while we are creating our registering our module, then you can see our in user service, we are passing this auth. So this auth exactly coming from here in the auth.js, right? So you can see hash password, a compare password. So this is definitely this particular function. It has to be matched with our domain also. Domain, well, we'll be going to check our password, then hash function. This particular hash function means our auth, right? So you can directly say, you can say auth, right? And here also we can say auth, right? This is really meaningful. But you can see like, auth doesn't have the compare method, right? So we can directly say here, auth will be, here, go to the auth.js. this is going to be like compare password. Then in the user entity also, we need to make sure like we are using this compare password. Or otherwise, you can directly use the bcrypt library or maybe hashing function right there. But to do so by using directly with the create user entity, there's going to be tight coupling with the hash function or maybe hasher, right? Or maybe authentication or auth, whatever library we are going to use. There will be having kind of tight coupling. That is what we don't want. That's why we are accepting. While we will check the password, then we will pass the auth here. Then auth will compare the password, and it is going to resolve this stuff, right? And now let's go here to the user service. Then you can see like this particular auth, we are passing it from here while we're creating this user service. So that means our user service is directly having access to this auth.js file, right? And where we can directly access all of the functions, right? So let's try to go ahead and add some code then. So now we are having the hash password, right? This is really cool. Then we can just like, we need to create our user entity here, like create user entity, right? So we can say const, right? User entity, the user entity will be create user entity, right? So this is what we need to do. But definitely we need to import this particular functions from there, right? So let's try to do import this particular entity here. Let's say import create entity, right? So make sure like we are having the correct path here. So we can say go ahead here, domain, right? Then user entity.js. Perfect. So we have our create user entity. But is it a kind of default? No, it's not default, right? So what we need to do, go to our user service, then we need to deconstruct this one. So we can say create user entity. So now we have the proper access of our user entity. So now we have our user entity, but you can see like while we are creating the user entity, then there are a couple of parameters we are accepting: ID, name, email, and hash password. So the way it's supposed to go here, something like this. We can say dot user data, deconstruct the user data, then the hash password. This is what exactly we are passing it on. So now you can see we have our ID, name, email, and hash password, right? So this key has to be matched with like, right? So let's go here and make sure this is matched correctly, right? Perfect, so it is matching. So now we have our user entity. Then with the help of this user entity, we are going to create our data, our record in our user repository. So while we are just creating our user, then instead of this user data, what we will be going to do, we'll be going to directly provide this one, the name. We don't care like what exactly it is getting stored in the user entity. We only need this couple of certain things only. As an example, we can say user entity, right, dot get name, right? So this is the function which is going to accommodate to provide our name field from our user entity, right? And the similar applies for our email, right? And the password will be our the password. Then rule, if there are any kind of rule or something we are assigning, then it's going to be stored accordingly. So now you can see this is quite simple, right? So while we're creating the user, then we have our created model here, right, which is taking care of all of the user inputs. So eventually, if you are passing some data from your client also, then still it is not considering all of this junk data, or if someone just try to break your application, only selected data we are going to use to create our user entity. Then we'll be going to pass only the filtered one, the required data for this. So this is the way we can just create our user record. And if you go to the user repository and they create user repository, you can see we have a name, we have email, we have password, we have rule is by default. That's why we don't need to set it again and again. And now let's go to our user. Now we need to perform the sending the email right here. So yeah, business logic already we have covered here. So now let's go ahead and we can say await, right? Await mailer. The mailer already we are receiving here on the time of registering this particular module, right? That this mailer is coming from this one, right? So what we can do directly, we can say send registration email, right? This is what we can just send it from here, mailer dot send registration email, right? So in send registration email, we'll accept the email ID and the username and some from a message maybe, right? So let's go and check it out, like what are the things where, yeah, images. to email and first name and message. So we can say like message, maybe this is going to be welcome, the username, right? Your account has been created. Perfect. So this is what we are going to send it over. And once this is done, then what we will be going to do, then we can just like send it back to this user entity right there, right? Or we can directly, we can just like send it back to this user entity. This is what exactly we need to return. But instead of this save the user, like while we're going to create the user, there are two ways you can provide the data, right? So one is you can create the token here, and another one is you can just like send some confirmation only, not enter the user data. So this is really really kind of cool idea to deal with right there. So in this case, what we'll be going to do, we'll be going to say return true, right? Perfect. So now our handler will be not going to be look for any kind of created data here, because client only care about whether this record has been created or not. If it is going to throw any kind of error, then we'll be going to look into, otherwise we will be going to send return true. So here, what we can do, we can just like wrap it up with a try catch, right? So if anything goes wrong here, then that is also we can handle. But as of now, that this is perfectly fine, because our handler will be going to handle everything, all the errors, and if it is going to throw from this level, or maybe from repository, or from any source of truth it is going to throw, our handler going to tackle everything, and still our client will be act on that particular error, right? It should not supposed to crash our application. This is what we are going to do in the handler level, right? So now let's go to our get all users. This is also going to be similar kind of stuff we can do, right? But as of now, this function is it's handled. So let's try to hook it up with our handler. So then once our handler setup is done, then we can just like come back and forth. We can just like hook it up rest of all the functions together. So here in the handler, right? So it's really lean. We can see like we have our validation schema, and we have our tied up functions, our user controller, which is creating our user. This is really cool. But we don't want that, right? Because while we need to accommodate this way, right? So by going with like all of the dependency injection, it is just coming from our this level, right? We have a repository, we have our service and all. Then somehow we need to provide all of these things to our handler. Then handler will be automatically just like control based on whatever the business logic layer it is based on, right? That is, it can be handled. So right now we have our controller, right? So controller also doing the pretty much same thing, but here we have our user service, and it's a kind of extended layer, you can say, right? So controller is route is handling our the request, right, from our client, and it is just like validating our input, and it's providing the all of the control to controller. Then controller is accessing again the user service, and it can be validated, and it can just like send a response, right? This is really cool. But the way we are going to do in the Fastify way, in that case the controller will be not required, right? So if we are going to do in the Node.js way, then maybe definitely the controller is a kind of best choice to decouple all of the layers. But while we are thinking like too many layers, this is really going to be a kind of burden for you also, while your project will be grow. So that's why in the modular way, you can think about it like when we'll be going to expose this user as a form of microservice, then again we will be going to fall into trouble to resolving multiple dependencies, right? So this is what we just try to like get rid of this user controller. But this is really cool thing, like while you are going to do it like MVC way, you have a route, you have a controller, you have like some other layer to reach it out to your business logic and the data access layer. This is really cool. But in the Fastify way, definitely it's going to be overburdening your project. Right? So in the Fastify way, we'll be not going to use this controller. So let's go to our handler right now. So we'll be going to tweak a little bit on our handler, right? So what we'll be going to do first, we can say export const register user handlers, right? Handlers. So here, the first thing we'll be going to take as a form of input, async, and definitely Fastify will be needed. Fastify instance will be needed. In the options, what we will accept the service, right? It's a service. And then here, inside this export, we'll be going to add all of the routes, like whatever routes we have right now, all of the routes we'll be going to export here, right? So now let's go ahead here. First of all, let's try to comment it out this one, right? This is not going to be required anymore. And now, so now let's go to our index.js file inside this user and the user module. Let's try to close rest of other modules. So maybe it's going to create confusion. So now let's go here index.js. Here, simply what we'll be going to do, we'll be going to say, instead of return, we can say register user handlers, right? Then we can simply pass the Fastify and user service. So now we can see this Fastify, we will be going to pass it here, and it can have our user service. This is we have just created here. So that means while we'll be going to have our register handler, this is going to handle all of the communications between our client and our application. So yeah, this is really picking up from our the top line from here. So let's try to onboard one by one all of the handler stuff right there. So the first function we can say here, the Fastify post, right? Then we can just return something from here. Then the way we are going to return, we can say here we need to use our user registration, right before the system call. We can say user register schema, right? This is what we need. So this is already we have here on the top, right? Then here also one more thing, right? Perfect. So now this is our going to be registration endpoint, and inside here what we will do, we will just put a kind of try catch here. So make sure if anything is going to be thrown by our service level layer, right, then it has to be handled correctly. So this is the way we can just send it back any kind of error stuff right there to our client, right? And now we can see while we are just creating our user, then simply we are just passing the request body. So our request body, we already know this user register schema. We have all of the input. So you can see we need the name and email and password. All of these things going to be necessary, right? So now this is perfectly okay, because while we are going to register, then it's going to call the service create user, and this is going to send the user data if it is going to be required right there. So now this service is coming from here, right? And this is the way, let's try to onboard rest of all the functions. So first of all, we can say the post will be going to be needed just for registration purpose. This is going to be maybe we can put it as a form of API, right? It's really cool, right? API, or how we are interacting this one in our here. Okay, so here in register user module, this is going to register our module, user module. Then in the user module, we are not using any prefix, register user handler. While we'll be going here, then definitely we can just put this kind of convention also. So I'm going to teach you how we can use the prefix and postfix for our version control. As an example, this particular version is going to be v1. Then if we need to introduce to the v2 also, how we can serve to the v1 also until we are deprecating all of these things or onboarding everything to the v2, then both of the APIs going to work in a similar way, let's say, right? So those things also we will be going to discuss. But now let's try to onboard rest of other functions. This is going to be register, right? Register user. Then we can say here login user. So in this case, login user also going to be same like API user. This is, we can say, register also, right? This is also going to be meaningful, right? And let's go to our login, and login also going to be same, just I'm going to add some code quickly, so then maybe we can discuss together all of the endpoints rather than typing one by one. All right, so now let's go ahead and check it out, what are the things we are going to handle here. So first of all, we'll be register our user. So you can see we have our one function that is called the create user. It's going to be handled from our service, right? Then we are going to use the login, then login user. We are simply passing this particular request body. And for login schema, we need to create one more schema for login. The way we're adding for our register schema here. Then while it comes to the update profile and get user profile, right? And the reset password and adding the address, right? And getting all of the available addresses and update address, right? And delete address, and finally we're getting the refresh token. So all of the functions we need to just like guard it under the protected route, right? So how we can protect all of the routes? So as you remember already, we have inside the shared library, or we have one middleware that is called authguard, right? This particular authguard, what we are going to do, we'll be going to add it right here in the user handler. So the way it is, we can get it here while right after user login, maybe while we're accessing our profile. Here we are going to add one more function. It's called middleware function. We can say here, and it will be going to preHandler, right? Right? preHandler will be our authguard. And this is going to be like something like this, right? Perfect. So now we can see this preHandler. What preHandler is going to do, right? This preHandler will be going to take care of while it will execute this route right before reaching out to this particular function execution. Then it will going to always evaluate this function, right? So this is what the meaning of the preHandler, right? Then now let's go ahead and do the same thing for our rest of other the endpoints also, right? We can just like copy these things from here, then we can add it here, right? Definitely it's not required like this, right? So now let's go here again just to try to add this preHandler here, and similar applies for here as well as, right? So yeah, then here also it's going to be needed, then again here also, right? And finally here and here, refresh token. So now we can just like handle accordingly, but I don't think like refresh token is going to be needed, because if we have the token, then we can just like grab it and do it accordingly. So let's try to remove this one. This is not going to be needed, right? So because we only care about the token, whatever we are going to send it to our body, then based on that only we will be going to look into, right? So maybe what we can do, we can just like capture here const the refresh token will be request body dot refresh token, right? And we'll check it out. If refresh token doesn't exist, then we'll be going to throw some kind of error. Then if it exists, then we'll be simply going to pass it on right here, right? So now we can see like this particular handler is handling everything. Like any error it is coming through, then we can tackle it here. Then if there are no any error, then whatever response we'll be going to get it from our service layer, then we'll be going to pass it on. So now let's try to handle one by one all of the functions in our service layer. So let's go to our service layer, go to create user. So I'm gonna close again rest of other modules, and here go to our service, user service, right? So this one, the create user, right? Create user, we're accepting all of these things right here correctly. This is fine. Then this get all user, it's not going to be needed because this is a kind of admin feature. Maybe we can do it later. Let's try to remove this one. Then let's try to close rest of all the files. Close others, handler. Now let's go to the login user, right? So go to user again. We can say login user. Do we have a login one? So create user, then yeah, user login. So we can just like move this function right here, right after create user has to be closed, then this one, right? So user login, maybe we can just like keep the same name. You can say user, right? So this is the beauty exactly. We can get it in TypeScript, which is we are not getting here in the JavaScript, right? So it's not giving like what already this particular object has a type. That type has autocomplete. That is, you cannot get it right there. But there are some settings you can do. We can get it also, but it's fine for a while. We're not going to dig deeper on that part. So now this user login, let's go check it out. This user login, how we can accommodate, right? All right. So now let's cover the user login. Let's go to our user service. So here in the user login, so first of all, we need to find out the user, right? User by email. So this is what exactly we are going to do here, right? So you can see like we are just try to find it out, user repository, get user by email. So let's check it out, like whether we have this particular function exist in our repository or not, right? So let's go to our user repository here. Then we can see like get user by email. This is exist, right? And this is try to find it out like if the user is exist by that particular email. We are just like sending one, adding one placeholder, right? And whatever result, it is getting it back right there. So let's try to add it here, right? First of all, we'll be going to use this user as a form of raw user. And definitely, while we'll be having this raw user, first of all, we will check it out. If we don't have the raw user, right, then we'll be going to throw some kind of error. So user not found with the provided email, right? This is what the error is supposed to throw. Then once we receive this user, then let's try to create again the user entity, right? So let's try to create the user entity. You can say user will be create user entity, and in fact this time while we are just creating the user entity, then we'll be going to provide the same data. Maybe some of the data are not important, that is we are storing in our repository, because while we'll be patching it out repository, it will going to give us like the created at, updated at, and some other way around also. Maybe the user reset password or expiry, all of these things, those are the things we are not required, right? So that's why what we're going to do, we'll be going to only provide the data that is going to be necessary or maybe important for our create user entity, right? So as a from of the user ID, then maybe we can just provide the name, user raw username, then email, then hash password, the password that is it's being from here, that is we are going to pass it on. And rule also is going to be needed, but in this case, while we'll be having the rule, then let's try to provide the rule also here, because rule also will be going to use in at some point. So you can just like provide this get rule, right? So rule, perfect. So now let's go here. Then we have our user. So now we can check it out, this user, right? This user, if, or maybe we can say const valid. We can say await user dot check password, right? Can you see this check password? This check password will be going to provide the password that is we have received from the raw user. And here we can just simply pass the raw user, or definitely user login will be accept one more parameter. This is going to be like password as well as and this password, what we are going to do, we'll be going to simply pass this password from here, right? Like this password, and auth will be our hasher or a hash function, this one, right? So now we will check like if it's a kind of valid password, then it will going to send true, otherwise it's gonna false, right? So that's why we are going to throw some kind of error, invalid password, right? So this is perfectly fine. Maybe we can send some other message also, but this is minimalistic, it's okay. Or maybe we can say invalid credential, or it's completely up to you. So now this is perfect. So once we are validating correctly, then we'll be going to create our access token, right? Then how we can create the access token? Const the access token, right? Access token will be having our auth, right? Auth, we can say sign. So let's try to visit the auth. Let's go to our shared, maybe we can say auth. Then we can see generate token, right? This is what exactly we need right there, right? Generate token. So generate token, we can just like go ahead here. We can say generate token, or is there any function maybe we can utilize? Yeah, verification. I think generate token is perfect, right? Generate token, and here simply we'll be going to provide the information. So user ID is going to be needed, email will be needed, then expiry will be, let's say 15 minutes or maybe some time. We are going to add it right there. So this is the way we can just like form our access, right? So we are providing the user ID, user email, and the rule. These are the three important stuff it will be needed for our front-end application. Or maybe we can just like provide it for 30 minutes, right? This is perfect, right? Then this is our access token. Then we'll be going to create one more, which is called refresh token. So what refresh token it is exactly? So while we're generating the token, right? Then we're hitting our database just to make sure, like validating all of the information. Can you see, like while we're generating the token, we're doing the login, right? So their user need to be, it's mandatory to log into the user, then they can just generate the token. But this token, this access token we are just like keeping for 30 minutes, just for security reason, right? So at any point of time, maybe you can change your password, you can do anything, right? So that's why what we are doing, like this access token will be short-lived token, and then another form of token we are going to provide, which is called refresh token. And refresh tokens are used to obtain a new access token without requiring to the user login again, right? So that means like with the help of that particular refresh token, we can utilize it to generate a kind of new access token, right? But keep in mind, this refresh token is we cannot use it to log in, or we cannot use it to access all of the user data. So this is what exactly we are going to do, right? So maybe later stage we'll be going to explore a little bit more, because anyway we'll be going to have some third-party authentication system also we'll be going to introduce while we'll be moving forward to the microservice the section in the next week. So let's try to accommodate accordingly then. So here, let's try to create our access token here. We can say const refresh token equal to auth. And let's go to auth again. Do we have any refresh token? Yeah, sign refresh token. So this is what exactly we are going to do, right? So let's try to do that one. We can say auth sign refresh token, right? So here, again, for refresh token also we'll be going to provide some kind of information here. Then the way we are going to provide it here, like user ID, then email and role. This is perfect. Then here also we'll be going to assign some expiry, right? So that particular expiry, maybe we can provide it at approximately, let's say 24 hours. 24 hours. Perfect. So we have our access token and refresh token, and both of the things maybe we can directly return to our user now. Return access and refresh token. Cool. So this is the way we can just like hook it up our user login. You can see like we are just to try to find it out our user by email. Then we are forming our entity here, right? Just to make sure like we are exposing only the required data, all right? So now in the get user by ID also going to be same, just like, we have the function that is called get user by ID. So let's go ahead and again verify it. Get user by ID we have, right? Then here get user by ID, again we are going to use the same function, right? So let's go here, create entity, right? So in this case, right, so now we have, this is going to be like a raw user, and this one will be our user, right? Then this particular user we can directly expose here, right? This is like our presentation layer will be no more having the access to our repository data right here, right? So this way we are just like try to isolating a direct connection between our source of truth, and we just try to expose to the whatever data has to be exposed. Those are, at least we have some control here. So now the update user. So while we are updating the user, can you see right now we are directly using the user repository to update user, right? So if you go to the update user, you can see like we have the recall of the update user, and similar applies for the delete user, right? So, but while executing this one, then it's service responsibility to find it out like whether we have the required data exist in our in the user section or not, right? So for this particular function. So in that case, what we're going to do, first of all, let's try to find it out of the user, right? So we can say const existing user repository find user by ID, right? So if there are no user ID found here, right, then we are going to return the error like user not found. So now what we need to do now, based on this one, like we will try to find it out if we have any kind of step by step, we will try to evaluate if there are some data which is need to update, then only we are going to update, otherwise we will not do that operation. Perfect. So now let's try to do one by one all of these things. So first of all, we will try to decide like whether we have that our password or not in this user data. User willing to update the password or not. So in this case, we can say const, right? Const has password. Then we will check like if user data has a password, then just like try to call the has password stuff from our auth, right? Auth already exists right there. So that is what we are trying to do. And if there are no password is involved, then we are going to use the existing user password, right? So we can say existing user get has password, right? So definitely this existing user get has password is going to be no more available. We can directly say like an existing user password, right? Because this user password, whatever we have the store right there, it's already pre-hashed, right? So now we have our password. So now let's try to create our entity. So we can say const the user entity, then we can say create user entity, and definitely we can like write like this. And here we are going to say ID will be the existing user ID, then user the user data name it is involved, then we are going to use this particular name, address existing username, then user email will be something like user email, then the hash password that is already we are extracting from here. And if there is a kind of a change on the rule, then we are going to use that particular rule, otherwise we are going to use the rule here, right? So now let's try to form the updated user fields. So what are the fields are already we are just like proposing here? We can see like we have a name, email, password, and rule. So these are the 4 fields we need to just like form it here, right? So now let's go here right before calling this update function. We can say const update data to update or user data to update. So here let's try to create one the data field object here, which is called updated user data. And inside this updated user data, we can just like grab our user entity, the get name, get email, has password, and user entity rule, and everything we are just like going to access there. Then finally, this updated user, we can just like pass it on here. Cool. So now we have our updated user. Then finally, you can just like return this updated user here. We can say return. Then this is going to be ID will be update user ID. Then rest of all the data we can just like provide it from here, right? So yeah, or we can directly use this user entity also. We can say user entity we get name, right? And similar applies for user entity get email and get rule. Perfect. So now can you see like our update user functionality also done? So let's try to remove all of these things from here. Right. Now let's go ahead to the delete user. So how we can delete the user data from there, right? So while we are deleting the data, there are not much to do exactly. So it's going to be simply just like removing the data from our database, right? So that is what we need to tackle it. So in this case, like this is enough profile. Like we're not going to forming any kind of data or right there. So you can directly send the user ID. So if whatever user ID is there, then we can just like send it back right there, right? So if there something is going to happen, then we can just like throw some kind of error. Otherwise, we can directly execute this stuff here. Then finally, one more function we can just like tackle here. Let's go to our handler. So what are the things we have just covered? We have covered the create user login, and update user profile. So make sure this function is matching with here. So update user, it's going to be like update user, right? Then the get user, right? So this is going to be like get user. So let's go ahead and check it out. What are the functions we have for that? Get user by ID. So this is what we can provide there, right? So let's go here, handler get user by ID. Then we can for the reset password and the address and getting address. So address stuff we are going to handle it in upcoming lectures, because anyway we need to cover the ordering part, right? That is the most essential thing which is we need to cover. But that's why actually I have just added beforehand this one. So we should not supposed to forget to edit all of this functionality. So for a while maybe we can just like comment it out for just to keep it in mind, like we will be not going to skip those functionality. So let's say empty object address, right? Then the similar applies for this one also, let's say, right? So maybe we can just like provide like this. This is going to be like empty array. Then the put address also going to be same. Just like put it like this way, right? Then address ID also going to be same, right? So let's try to keep it like this, right? Then refresh token we need to add it, right? And similarly applies for our Yeah, profile already we have covered. We have covered the register, login, and the profile, and get profile as well as, and the reset password we need to cover. Then address, then user address by ID, and delete address as well as. Then let's try to handle this refresh token. So in the refresh token, how we can just like get it done. So you can see like we have our refresh token here. So let's try to add one functionality in our user service. So here, right after update and delete user, this is we can just like cover it in while one user just to try to delete their profile, then they can just like access this one. But as of now, let's try to provide the reset password one, right? So we can provide reset password. Then we can say, right, then we are going to say the refresh token, right? The token we are going to accept right there. Then definitely. So these are the two functions we need to cover first, right? So let's go ahead and add some code one by one to all of these two functions. So then our user handler can be like, again, it's going to be functional, right? Perfect. So while we are going to work on the reset password, then one more thing will be needed: email and our new password, right? So we can say the new password will be going to generate automatically, right? So this is, we are not going to accept it from our user, right? So this is going to be like, go to our user handler, and here, while user try to reset password, then definitely we need the email ID, right? So this is this pre-handler, the auth card will be not required. So let's try to accept the request from here, which is going to be const the email. Email will be request body.email, right? So if there are no emails set, then we can just like send some kind of error message. Gonna be saying email ID, email is required, right? Then simply we are going to pass that particular email to our set reset password. So let's go to our user, and this is going to be like reset password, and here we are accepting the email. So the first thing what we need to do, we need to generate a new password, right? Then what we will be going to do, we'll be going to update new password in the database, then send the password to the user email, right? Then we are going to return the message by saying like reset password link has been sent to your email. Or maybe we can just like say something, hey, you have a new password, we are just sending you through the email. We go ahead and use the temporary password to set a new one, right? This is what the idea it is. But the reset password or forget password is it's a kind of different mechanism. So while some of the application we can just like set it the way form of sending some temporary code, right? And that code will be attached to that email link, and if you click on that email link, it will be going to be redirected to the front end, and front end can capture that link it's attaching to that email, and they can directly set a kind of new password right there. So that functionality also we can do it, right? But as of now, we will just like try to accommodate this way. So while while user will try to reset the password, we will send a kind of new password to their email, so they can like utilize that new password, right? Then this feature will be more interesting. It will become more interesting when we'll be working on our front end part. But nothing to worry. We'll be going to handle that in a kind of visual way with the help of our front end application. So this message will be a little bit different then. Then we are going to say like a new password is sent to your registered email. Perfect. So now let's try to generate a kind of random password here. Const new password will be mat random. We can just like generate some random password here, right? And this password, maybe what we can do, like generate a password at least 8 character long, right? So this is also what we can do, like at least minimum 8 character long. So now this is our new password. Then what we are going to do, we need to hash this password, right? So we can say const hashed password. Then our auth library will going to take care of the hash password of the new password. Then we have our hash password. Now let's try to update our database, right? We are going to say user user repository, get user by email, and here we can directly say like update. Definitely update user will be not going to update everything, only we will be going to provide the hash password, hashed password, hash password, hashed. Perfect. So now we can fairly update our user. Then this new password will be take place. Then we're going to send the message, or here we need to call our mailer. Await mailer send password reset email, and similar kind of things maybe we need to accommodate here. Let's go to our mailer. Then this email will be, this is going to be like the same, send password reset email, right? Similar, just like this, right? Though we are not sending any email as of now, but still we have the information. So here this message will be involved like our password or whatever the thing we will be going to attach there. So let's go ahead here. Then we can say your new password is this. Yeah, you can change it after you log in. Perfect. So then while we'll be going to introduce our front end, then we will be going to add one more function where they can change this temporary password. So there are no any kind of issues with like handling all of the OTP stuff or expiry stuff and all. So they can directly change this particular password right there. Cool. Now let's go ahead and handle our refresh token here, right? So how we can change the refresh token here, or how we can obtain a kind of new token here? Let's try to do that one. So while we will be calling this refresh token, then definitely this token we need to accept from our request body, right? So let's go here, and yeah, we are already accepting these things from our request body, and it is we are passing it to our refresh token function. Let's go to our user refresh token. This is perfectly okay. Then let's try to call our payload. You can say const payload. Payload will be auth, and our auth should have to be verify refresh token. Let's go to our auth here in the shared library. You can see verify refresh token, right? So we have the payload right there. So let's try to go ahead here again and try to find it out, like verify refresh token, right? Is that the functionality correctly I'm using? Yeah, verify refresh token, and we are passing simply token, and we are simply just like try to find it out. If there are no payload, then we are going to say invalid refresh token, right? And if it is exists, then we are just like try to find it out to the user, because by particular user ID we know this whoever having this refresh token, that is a kind of authenticated user, right? So we no need to worry about the re-login again. So that's why we are just like getting user by ID, and we are obtaining the access token, and we are finding it right there. But with the help of like again, because right after getting this token, again we can issue one more refresh token, right? So we can say const, all right, const refresh token. Then we can just like provide all of the necessary information here, right? The user ID, email rule, right? Then here we can just like define again how much time it's going to be needed for that, right? So now can you see like all of the functionality we have covered accordingly, whatever we have hooked up with our handler, right? So now we will go ahead in the next video by just like try to test it out, the whole user module right there. But after that I'll be moving to the writing the whole project in the TypeScript. But as a form of the homework, maybe if you are watching this video from our bootcamp, then definitely you have already gaining a task to complete like rest of other modules writing the same way we did for our user. And you need to just like go ahead and write all of the endpoints. Just like pause the video, maybe check it out, what are the endpoints you have right now. So try it out, all of the endpoints. So here these are the endpoints right now we are handling, right? So definitely like forgot password we have not handled, but it doesn't make sense like without exposing the or without introducing the front end. The forgot password will be a little bit finicky, because we need to handle those scenario in our front end to having this a real use case. And these are the part exactly we need to cover right there, right? So now let's go ahead here, right, in the source code and see like what we can do here. The user module, the way we are registering our user module, in the similar way you need to just create for the shopping and the catalog, and you can utilize some of the things from the share, right, just to validate the user stuff, right? And for user module, what we are going to do, we need to look into like what are the schemas are there. That particular things we are going to handle in our next lecture, just to make sure like validations are on place. Then we can test it out the whole user module correctly. Perfect. Then let's see you in the next lecture. Bye bye.